Hello and welcome to the Cuyamaga Institute, our Q&A conversation for exploration series. I'm Paul Robert, the Executive Director and President of the Institute, and along with my wife, Laura Lee, the Director of Research, Education, and Outreach, and of course, on behalf of our Board of Directors, our advisors, volunteers, and supporting members, we want to thank you for joining us today. The Cuyamaga Institute is an independent, nonprofit research organization committed to researching consciousness and the human experience, following the footsteps of our founder, anthropologist Dr. Felicitas Goodman. And our focus is reflected in three main areas: experience, education, and exploration. We respect the path of academic balance, the creative pursuit of science, while advancing, conserving, and restoring a direct experience of that deeper human connection to all of life. So it's part of our mission to expand our own experiential research with the multidisciplinary understanding that's available to us today. So as an educational institution, we take an open approach and we invite scholars in related fields to come with us and share their research and help broaden the scope of our own work and exploration. And that's why we call this Conversation for Exploration. Today, a guest is going to take us on an exploration, highlighting the profound insights of metaphysician and mathematician Alfred North Whitehead, whose concept of the living web offers us a dynamic worldview. Whitehead challenges us to see the universe not as static, but as an interconnected process of becoming, where life, nature, and thoughts are constantly evolving in a web of relationships. He invites us to embrace the fluidity of reality, understanding that every moment is shaped by this interaction of the past, present, and future, all woven together in a living, vibrant web of existence.
Well, we continue our series in which we ask, who are we really in the grand scheme of things, as we explore our universe and our place in it, which is really a lifelong quest and a sacred one at that. So what compels us today to sit down with our guest and dive deep into this particular philosopher? Our guest is Pia Shaw, and this philosopher that most of us have not yet heard of was a Harvard professor for over a decade in the 1920s and 30s. Early on, he was saying these marvelous things, Paul. And Pia's answer to that question is rather irresistible. She says, Alfred North Whitehead's work allows us to reframe our understanding of emotions, to see them as more than a human experience, but as a cosmic phenomenon in the universe. Now, isn't that thought that we experience emotions as a cosmic phenomenon in the universe, isn't that rather validating and a bit earth-shattering in the best way? Well, Pia Shaw describes herself as a philosopher of emotions. She wrote her dissertation on the work of Whitehead for her degree, for her Ph.D. at the California Institute of Integral Studies. She describes herself as a Whiteheadian scholar and a process philosopher, and we will find out just what process philosophy is in the course of our discussion and its cosmic dimensions. And if you've joined us for many of our new Story of the Cosmos interview series, you will know the answer to that is because we're all cosmic beings made of stardust, through which the universe herself is reflecting back to herself. That's the emerging new view of our true identity. Now, doesn't that put our emotions as a cosmic phenomenon into context? Pia further writes that Whitehead holds that our subjective experience is the primary source of our knowledge of our world, and that any system of thought must account for it adequately. Our society does not yet do that. She quotes Whitehead, philosophy is mystical, for mysticism is direct insights into depths yet unspoken. Oh, yeah, we're all over that one. Pia was among our favorite of the many fascinating people that we met at the New Cosmic Story Gathering last July. And we're delighted to welcome her to meet all of you. Welcome, Pia. Good to have you here.
Thank you very much. And you guys know so much about Whitehead. I think my job here is complete.
We're just quoting you. So,
He's a pretty complex character, and
Oh my gosh, he
and
is. He
in
is.
prepping for this and watching a few lectures and stuff, and say, oh my God, this is something way beyond. I mean, I'm being drawn into another whole world of understanding. So no, we haven't done anything yet with what this man brought to the
we're
table.
relying on you, Pia, for that.
We're
So,
really excited with what you're going to bring to us.
No, I'm excited. I'm excited about what you've already presented about Whitehead, and I'm very appreciative that you took the time to, dive into this. Not as well known as he should be, philosopher. So he was, as you said, he was a mathematician and a logician. He worked with Bertrand Russell. In fact, Bertrand Russell was his originally his student. They worked together, collaborated together on Principia Mathematica, which basically looked at logic and mathematician and mathematics. And basically, Whitehead came to the opinion that there was a limit to logic. There was
thank
always
you.
there was a gap you had to actually jump over. And he and Bertrand Russell parted ways. Bertrand Russell became is an analytic philosopher, and Whitehead is a speculative philosopher. A speculative philosopher is, it's not about analyzing words and symbols. It's about applying, your imagination to cosmology and metaphysics. So just a very interesting split. And Whitehead talks about our experience, as you mentioned, as being primary, and we really have, and he says it can't be explained away.
Mm.
It needs to be accounted for. And a lot of metaphysics really discounts our intuition, our emotions. A lot of it comes from the primacy of the scientific method, which prizes dispassionate analysis. Take your emotions out of it, just the facts, just the objects. So the subjective experience has definitely not been given the respect that it should have.
And wouldn't that be a phenomenon of our philosophy, which wants to separate objective from subjective, when really we're living both, right?
Mm.
I mean, it's a fuller view to combine the two rather than say one over the other.
Yeah, I mean, you have sort of a duality there, and basically Whitehead reunites just a lot of dualities, including mind and matter, mind and body, inside out, outside object, objective, subjective. He's a great unifier, and the fact that he underpins so much of our experience. It's kind of nice that he was a logician. Like he's giving us a metaphysics, right? He's giving us
Mhm.
an ontology, a cosmology that explains our reality in a way that that we can understand in our experience. But it also underpins, all the new science, all that science has had has discovered in the past century, which basically, crops up against the end of classical mechanics, classical physics. And
Mhm.
so he satisfies the religious, the arts, the sciences, and, really brings them together under one united theory
I was just thinking it sounds like the new unified field theory for our lived experience, really.
Right.
yeah, yeah.
We
So,
should be part of that.
yeah.
Yeah.
But the fact that he's a logician is great. I mean, it's just like he's going to give us like a philosophy is a systematic, analytical, is systematic. It gives us a system of thought that's analytical that really appeals to our side that wants logic. We want something to be reasonable and logical. There's a part of us that kind of wants that. We want our experience explained in a very systematic way. And it's just another way. It's another way of knowing, and it's another way of understanding. And it also adds clarity to our own experience,
And I
right?
appreciate the indigenous cultures in which their objective view matched their interior view. Their exterior and interior views met up. And so this sounds like a way to help us validate this, navigate that, so that we're not discounting what we feel and what we live and our emotions,
Right.
but
Right.
validating them. I mean,
Yeah.
that's, yeah. So put him into context. How did he get onto this line of thinking so early on? And when did he live? I mean, he died in the mid-50s, didn't he? So,
1947, I think.
oh,
I'm actually in Cambridge. I was at Harvard at Harvard University for a one-day conference, which celebrated the 100-year anniversary of his first lecture.
Uh,
So he was invited to Harvard to teach philosophy. He didn't want to teach philosophy. He wanted to teach his own ideas on philosophy. He came to philosophy late in life. He was a mathematician, logician. As I said, he was, I think, 63 when he came to Harvard. So
mhm.
basically retirement age. And in that time came up with, all of his books, Science in the Modern World, Modes of Thought, Process and Reality, Adventure of Ideas. All of his books were written in this time frame when he was at Harvard. So which is great as being a sort of an elder student myself, I always found really a lot of hope with Whitehead, that you can go on to another career, after 63, 65 and
Yeah.
become be very successful at it and he's really one of the leading minds of the 20th century in philosophy.
in
Mm.
philosophy. Well, it's time to bring these out and for the rest of us as well. So it sounds like it was a good gig for him at Harvard because he was having to deliver lectures to students. And so were these the notes of his lectures? Were these books he'd written before? But
Well, a lot of his lectures became his books.
that's what I'm saying. Yeah, it was a good gig that he was forced to write to philosophize to his students. So
Yeah.
how did you happen onto Whitehead, and why was this a key discovery for you that you wrote your dissertation about him?
Yeah, I mean, I spent a lot of time with Whitehead, so I'm sort of thinking about what the appeal might be. I guess the short story is I what's a short story? uh, so I guess a number of years ago, I went on a spiritual quest. My unfortunately my husband had died, and it really sent me in a spiral in terms of what is the meaning of life? And, so it's like it was a Joseph Campbell, like hero's journey moment where, everything's fine, fine, fine. And then all of a sudden, something happens and it sets you out on the journey. So, I think for me, it was a spiritual quest. And one of the things I dabbled in Eastern philosophies for a while. And then kind of looking for some spirituality, if you want to call it that. And I came across evolutionary enlightenment. It was Andrew Cohen. And anyway, I had a bingo moment where I thought, wow, there's the beginning of the universe. At the Great Flaring Forth, the Big Bang, right? This moment in time where the universe begins, our cosmic epoch begins.
Right.
And I went, oh, there's nothing, that's it. We went from here to us talking here and, having this experience. And that really set my imagination going. And it really set me on this idea of, what is what is the meaning in the evolutionary perspective, right? And what's being discovered, which led me to Brian Swim, which we all know, the universe story and the new cosmic story. And so I went to study with Brian, and I found that Whitehead really underpinned
Yeah.
so many things that were presented by the new story, and I felt that what was holding us back to really embracing this new story. And
Yeah.
part of what I realized was that we're kind of stuck in this old metaphysical way of thinking.
Yeah.
And and we still are. I mean, I still am. I mean, I think a lot of us are, and we don't even realize it. So you can't get out of one frame of reference, one paradigm, one worldview without kind of seeing another one, so you can kind of look back and differentiate your, uncover what you really know. So it's kind of like when you learn a new language, like you kind of all of a sudden you can appreciate your own language for what it does, right?
Mhm.
So that was kind of what brought me to Whitehead, and I just really like his philosophy. It's about my experience, and that tells me something about how the universe works. And he just has this really wonderful way about talking about the aim of beauty and harmony in the universe that is just really aesthetically appealing.
His ability to consolidate and articulate knowledge in a way and present it. It's something that those of us that have been participants in the spiritual practice, that have been on this path of discovery, need that description, that understanding, so we can, oh, that's what it is. From the scientific side of the fence, the philosophy side of the fence, give language to it so I can really understand what it is I'm experiencing, what's this path I'm on. And if you take some of his stuff out from his name, if people would think it's probably some new age guru who just started here recently, but here it is 100 years ago, or not 100, completely 100 years ago, but 50, 60, 70 years ago, that this gentleman not only was talking about metaphysics from a perspective of integrating it into the experience to that level of experience. Experience was an important aspect to his work, the human experience, and that interconnectedness to all of life.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, the only thing I would say to that is that one of the reasons that Whitehead is not popular is he is really difficult to read.
Yeah.
He is, yeah, and for a number of reasons. It's not that, he's not a great writer or articulate. It's just that what he's trying to articulate, our language structure doesn't support it.
Mm.
So even last night, I would have to say, oh yeah. So I think I sent you that great quote by his biographer that said, and this is an advocate, his friend, right, who said his book Process and Reality was about as long as Kant's Critique of Pure Reason, and about as backbreaking, right? So
Yeah.
that was his biographer. So he's not approachable. And I have to say, I woke up at it's hard to describe what he's doing. And honestly, I woke up at 2 o'clock this morning, kind of going, you know what? Fools walk, rush in where wise men, know not to tread, right? Honestly, so it's hard not to get geeky when describing his system,
Right.
but by the same token, you don't want to oversimplify it. So there's not a lot of really good, I think, information out there for people that just want to take a casual idea of, to get a flavor of what he's talking about. And that's what I'm really trying to do today. I'm really trying to.
Thank
I
you.
just want to give you guys a quick one-on-one of Whitehead, which is kind of impossible, but I,
Be
do
a translator for us. Yeah. But the
Yeah.
same stuckness that you're talking about, I mean, that's pervading us. It's really hard to go from one orientation to another. And so that's why I think worldviews are so important to explore, to dissect, to try on, to expand, take the blinders off and expand. And that's quite an exciting journey, really.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
I mean,
okay, Whitehead 101, where do we begin?
well, sure. I mean, I just wanted to say sometimes when it sounds confusing and kind of geeky and stuff like that, it's because it does take it just takes a big shift. And when you're making a big shift, things sound confusing. And so I just realized at 2 in the morning, I kind of go, this is the nature of what we're trying to do. We're all trying to shift into a new consciousness. This is, expressing a new consciousness that we seek, but we're not quite there yet. So it feels really difficult to grok. And yeah. So then I said, okay, do your best. 2 in the morning, went back to sleep. So anyway, just
Dive in. We'll
So,
get there, I'm sure, eventually.
okay, good. Well, should I start then?
Yes, let's launch the slideshow and presentation part of it. And
Okay, so I'd like to start with this, that one of his one very famous scholar of Whitehead's is John Cobb Jr., Dr. John Cobb Jr. I like his quote. He says, "The universe can be thought of one throb of emotion." So this is his interpretation of Whitehead. So it's not a thing, it's just a big throb of emotion. So I just want to maybe sort of keep that idea in the forefront as we go through this, just see if you can tag back into it. So welcome to Whitehead's universe. So what Alfred North Whitehead, we're reframing our experience, and I'm going to talk about process, what process is, what process metaphysics is. I'm going to compare it to substance metaphysics. So you can see how we're kind of stuck in one and trying to get to another one. I want to talk about how this is, his process metaphysics is radically interrelational. And so I want to just talk about how understanding Whitehead, we get a better appreciation of just how interrelated we all are. And finally, talk about beauty, because I like to talk about Whitehead and beauty and its aim, because the universe aims for harmony, novelty, beauty, and peace. And so that's just a really nice piece for Whitehead. So here's the warning. I can't read my screen because you guys are over top of it.
I'll read it. The scholar John Cobb Jr. believes that it would take nothing less than an existential transformation to fully appreciate Whitehead's radically different way of perceiving reality. To fully understand would take a transformation of consciousness.
Okay, thank you. I can see.
Since we're at an existential crisis, this is a good time for a new philosophy to come in. We're all ready.
Okay, great. You're forewarned then. Okay, so the benefit of understanding Whitehead's work, or understanding it, is that he gives us a way of thinking about ourselves, where we're not separate from the rest of nature. We're actually embedded and very much part of it. And his metaphysics describes that. The other thing, Thomas Berry has a great quote that I think we all know: "We are not a collection of objects, but a communion of subjects." Well, when I first saw that actually did lead me to Whitehead, because I kind of, how does that work? So how does pansubjectivity work? So Whitehead gives us a pansubjective lens that helps us to align with being a community of subjects, being ecological beings, being in each other's experience. And then what Whitehead gives us, he terms a philosophy of organism, right? So basically he's giving us a cosmology of not just how, an ontology of not just how things come together, but a cosmology of how they fit together, right? So he helps us appreciate how much order and harmony surrounds us, and which has been created in a very organic, holistic way. So, and again, it's just one more tool for shifting consciousness and culture. I think if we could sort of shift this down through culture. So, I think we've already touched on this. I mean, you asked me about my experience of Whitehead. Well, this is what I wrote when somebody once asked me, why do I like Whitehead? And I just want to share it with you because it's this is personal. So I wrote, much of my affinity for Whitehead's work lies in the importance he placed in subjective experiences. My years of attention to Whitehead's work has led to the reassurance of the significance of my own interiority and my own subjective responses. So far from being separate and idiosyncratic, my own experience is the way the universe expresses itself, right? So, and it resonates, and how I experience myself resonates with how the universe itself unfolds. So it's just great to be to not feel outside of nature, but be part of its creative expression.
And so validating.
Yeah, thank you. And I did want to share too, because it gets kind of dry, and I often go back to this. So since my experience tells me something about the universe, how the universe works, right? I love that. And so this boost to the status of my own subjective experience has in turn led to a new appreciation for the subjective experience of others. Whether others can be considered people, the forest, the stars, or the Milky Way.
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just finished with
Building community, isn't it, on a cosmic scale?
Yeah.
And it's also acknowledging a living universe as opposed to this idea of a cold, dead universe that's running out of steam.
Yeah, I think of Martin Buber, right? Who says, he gives the difference between I, and it and thou, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the universe is an it, right? But if you make it a thou, that's got subjective experience. That's alive. That's responding to its environment and making decisions and just being an event and dynamic. So the shift that I've come to is to do that has been subtle. It's been hard to go from an it to a thou, and I still go backwards. So I said the shift has been a subtle one, and it's sort of difficult to explain, but it's best understood as a result of a new metaphysical reckoning, and a lot of it has been about looking at Whitehead's work. So just wanted to
Also good to experience as a lived experience as well.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, as you said, not just logic, but many other aspects to our experience and approaches.
Yeah. So this is what I'm going to talk about. Again, I'm going to talk about his process philosophy, relationship, and the aim for beauty and harmony. So I'll start with process philosophy. So first of all, I'm going to compare substance-based Cartesian metaphysics with Whiteheadian metaphysics. And then I'm just going to introduce a little bit of how to approach his metaphysical position. And I think you guys have touched on it already. So I just want to just mostly give a flavor to it. I think a real Whitehead purist would say, no, you missed this, you missed that. But I'm sort of brief, just hopefully brief enough, but give enough information so people can understand where he's coming from. So first of all, yeah. So I'm going to talk about Cartesian values and Whiteheadian values, and you can see there's, first of all, humans are separate from nature. There's a duality, mindless matter, external, acted on by external forces. Whitehead runs counter to that. Cartesian logic says that they're just independent substances that only need themselves in order to exist. And Whitehead's approach is radically interrelational and holistic. So how did that come about? So early in the 17th century, René Descartes, as we know, famously split the world into two types of substances, giving us a duality of mind and matter. So there's the world out there, which is matter extended in space, and then there's the world of thought, which is in here, subjective experience and agency. So for Descartes, there's mind and matter, but mind was solely to be found in humans and God. So God and humans, to get that priority right. So that left God and us separate and outside of the rest of nature. And the rest of nature is composed of objects without any intrinsic value, without meaning, without aim, without agency, just being moved around by external forces. So this gives us the first split between humans and the rest of nature, and it also leads to this idea of human exceptionalism. So there's not just a difference. So there's not just a difference in the substances, but neither needed the other one to exist. That's the duality. There's no relationship really between them. So the notion that things could exist in isolation meant that there's no intrinsic relationship between things. So everything has to be explained mechanically. So if you think of dissecting a fish, maybe you can understand how it swims, but you'll never understand, why it swims. It might have, and you really don't understand the wonder of the evolution of how it came to swim. So it's a very limited way of looking at things and describing things, because it just, ignores purpose. And so that was early in the 17th century. Descartes' work was published. Isaac Newton, later on in the 17th century, built on Descartes' work. He gave us the scientific method, which was amazing. And also he explained classical physics or classical mechanics, which up until the 20th century worked fine to explain everything. But as we know, and I think there are people on this call that could give better examples than me, the science, what science has found in the last century, really, shows the cracks in this classical way of classical mechanics or classical physics. So that's way back in the 17th century. But even though the Cartesian divide is softened, we don't flail dogs alive as they did in the 17th century to experiment on them, saying that their howls of pain meant nothing, they were just machines. We've come a long way from that grotesqueness, but the laws for the SPCA, the Society for the Prevention of Cruelty for Animals, didn't really arise until like 1823, so a significant period of time before, animals were deemed to, there's evidence that animals were deemed to be.
It goes so far just beyond our treatment of animals. If we view the world as this is just cluttered with objects without any intrinsic value, it allows us to trash our resources and abuse our planet and one another. I mean, it really set the stage for the industrial age and everything that followed, didn't it? All of our woes here based on that.
Absolutely. We still see this big arguments for, so many of us don't want to allow exploration in pristine wilderness or drilling in, pristine wilderness because
trees have no intrinsic value, right? The wildlife has no value. It's not a resource. It's not a commodity. Yeah.
Right. So
it is a commodity. It is just a resource. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's where a lot of this, this is coming from this Cartesian worldview that we're still fighting, that we still have, right? So yeah, and also just in medicine, I mean, for example, somatic medicine, right? There's been a lot of recognition that there's been a lot of recognition that if you go to the doctor and with some complaint and they run a bunch of tests, they'll say, well, there's nothing wrong with you, it's all in your head, right? I mean, we've come a long way from that, but not a lot. It's it's somewhat discounted. If they can't find some physical reason, then it's kind of dismissed as being psychosomatic, it's in your head. And I think that mind-body split is still with us still.
Or they're looking at medicines to say, oh, this goes beyond the placebo effect. Why not use the placebo effect? Why not the fact that it's in your head? That's to your advantage to heal. A lot of healing power there. Come on. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So I just want to see what my next slide is. Right. Okay. So Whitehead really doesn't like Descartes. So, and I just like this quote because, and I'll just read it out to you. His quote, he says, at the beginning of the modern period, Descartes expresses this dualism with the utmost distinctiveness. For him, there are material substances with spatial relationships and mental substances. The mental substances are external to the material substances, and neither requires the other for completion of its essence, right? We've talked about that. Okay, their unexplained interrelationships are unnecessary for their respective existences. And then he says, in truth, this formation of the problem in terms of minds and matter is unfortunate in that it omits the lower forms of life, such as vegetation and the lower animal types. And then he says, the effect of this sharp division between nature and life has poisoned all subsequent philosophy.
Yeah.
So he's our man, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, in contrast to the Cartesian worldview, and I think we've already touched on this, a Whiteheadian perspective does not envision a world made of substances, but rather sees a dynamic and process-driven universe, not full of isolated non-relativistic elements, but holistic and relational in all its parts. And somebody expressed it this way: Whitehead opened up a new and useful way of reconceptualizing the basic nature of reality. He pointed out, in perfect accord with our experience of the world and with scientific understanding, that the actual world is made up not of self-existent things, but endure unchanging through time, but are made up of happenings or events. Okay. So that's kind of the starting point. So he says these events have a discrete temporal quality, past, present, and future. And there's a flow between these events, with the past causally affecting the present and the present aiming at the future. And these constitute our subjective experience. So, that's a lot of words, but if you just pause in your experience, you can sense the flow of time in the present. Yeah, so I just want to sit with that for a second. So, yeah, I mean, basically, this Whitehead and Descartes started at different points. Like Descartes started thinking about, I think therefore, looked into his experience and said, I think therefore I am. And Whitehead said, wow, there's the real flow going on here.
Well, I like this flow of relations even between one moment and the next, right? That we're constantly evolving. The molecules in our body are constantly exchanging from one moment to the next. We're not static creatures. We're not objects. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's great. Because exactly, I mean, that's exactly the point that I want to get to. It's just not us, right? So,
Yeah. So tell us about actual occasions.
Yeah. So what he refers to these moments of experience as actual occasions, okay? They're really the final realized things that the world is made up of. There's nothing else but occasions, okay? The occasions are responsible for making up the world that we inhabit. It's not a ready-made world out there. So I like this explanation of how to envision an actual occasion. Okay. So it's easier to think of an actual occasion as something when something really actually happens. Okay. The past is already past. It's causing the future to emerge a certain way.
Yeah.
But we introduce novelty in the present moment, because we're looking at all the possibilities of how the future is going to unfold. So there's the past, everything that's ever happened, and then there's a present where we kind of go, okay, what's going to happen in the next moment? What are the possibilities? And then the future flows into the present flows into the past, right? So it's easy to think of an actual entity or an actual occasion as a moment of experience. Okay, so I'll just read this. If we think of a human life as a series of moments of experience stretching from conception to death, and if we cut a slice through this life, we'll encounter a single actual entity, a single moment of experience. Okay, so think about this moment is complex because it bears within it all the relationship to all the moments that occurred before it. Okay. And to all the moments that occurred after in that first life. It doesn't exist in relation. It does not exist. It does exist in relationship to other moments. Yeah. So really the power of the past to affect the present moment, right? There are uncountable factors from the past that come together and feed into our immediate experience, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there are lots of things like a state of indigestion, a lack of sleep, the undercurrent of world events, sad news about a friend.
Oh,
Any
hey, the Big Bang is still reverberating through us. That's
exactly right. So things that we can immediately think about, are subtle. They're all historical factors that come to contribute our immediate experience. And in fact, we can go back to the origins of our cosmic epoch, right? The Big Bang, the Big Flaring Forth, to say that everything that has happened in our collective history is relative to our current moment of being. It's the reason it is the way it is.
So, one of the quotes that you had earlier on the screen came from a book about reincarnation, I noticed in the title. So,
Yeah.
was that author using this as, hey, it's one giant continuum here that we're all on, our consciousness, and maybe validating the notion of reincarnation as in previous lives impacting this one as well? I just
Yeah,
think,
I think
yeah.
that's the argument that he has. That is a really interesting book. Actually, Eric Weiss has passed. He was my tutor in Whitehead for years. Just a brilliant guy. And he wrote that book using Whitehead to really express how we could think of life after death as a
Mhm.
continuum.
Oh, wow,
So
so
I'm glad
formal.
I'm glad you picked up on that. So yeah, it's a very interesting read, and he's a very, he argues very well, and he makes his case very compellingly. So yeah, definitely something interesting to look at. Um, but when you think about, okay, when we think of our collective history, we have so much collective history that we share, right? Um,
Oh,
so
yeah.
yeah, so it gives us our commonality, right? It gives us how much common past we share. And then, but it also allows for our individual diversity, the diversity of being an individual, because we have a certain lineage and we're making up our own subjective minds. We're all interacting, but we all have our own individual experience, right?
An
Of
agency to provide novelty within that context as well. Yeah.
exactly, yeah, novelty, exactly. This is where we create novelty. Everything's the same, and we go off into our own individual we have our own individual occasions where we introduce novelty into the present, and in this way we introduce novelty into the universe.
Mhm.
And
uh,
hopefully harmony and beauty.
and beauty. Otherwise we get cranky. That's where your emotions come in. You're not in beauty if you're cranky. your,
It's a
your,
good
emotions,
dial readout, is it not?
your
Yeah.
emotions tell you whether you're on the right track or not.
It is a
So
good guide. If I have beauty and harmony in my GPS, my navigation system, that's a good navigation system to go by.
To follow.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
yeah, and let your emotions tell you whether things are discordant
Am I
or
getting hot? Am I getting cold?
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So our emotions really lead the way, and I'm going to talk about feelings like in the next section, and certainly want to get back to that idea of being a feeling universe. What I've just been trying to do here is just to get everybody to give you the idea of what he means by an event, right, and how important the past is in our moment, and how we introduce novelty in the present moment, right, and we look at all the possibilities as we go into the future. And so because Whitehead wanted to connect this experience that we can feel into it, right?
Yeah.
But he allowed that. It's just not us. It's like it's all the cells in our body, all the cells in our body, the molecules, atoms, down to subatomic particles. Each one of those has its own experience, and I think Laura, you already expressed that early on. I think before I got into my talk. It's just not us, but this is where we're saying the experience that we can tap into is actually happening at all these different levels of existence. Um,
We can
so
never feel isolated to understand that we're really part of this whole continuum.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Isolation and feeling disenchanted is one of the mental illnesses of our time.
Yeah, isolation for sure. For
Yeah.
sure. Yeah. And this is the anecdote to it. No, you are so connected. You can't be unconnected.
Enough pores, feel it. Yeah. Let it
Yeah,
breathe through you.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think maybe I'm just going to skip over this other than, again, we're just talking about a living cell is also composed of events.
Mhm.
Um,
Even on these microscopic levels.
right.
Yeah.
Um, so, yeah, so a cell has an inherent unity and is constituted by a new level of internal relationships with their environment. So again, when we're talking about something making a decision in the present moment, it's interacting with this environment with all the other experiences. Okay. So, but I just like this last line, it says, this means that a cell has experience of the world in some dim way, analogous to our own. Although, you know what, we don't think that experience is conscious. Okay. But
But this is a conscious living universe, and there it is. Yeah.
right. So okay, so my personality is a sequence of events, and my body is a more complex society of events. And together these events compose all of who I am, like my beating heart, pumping heart, pumping metabolism, nerves, muscles, as well as my thoughts, feelings, emotions, and other physical or mental activities. So we're basically, a society of actual occasions that are cooperating together. I mean, the fact that our body is just a glorious piece of harmony, you know, of these communion of subjects, working and responding to each other to maintain sort of a beautiful equilibrium and a beautiful harmony, so that actually you and I can be, you and I, or you and the rest of us can be having this conversation. It's pretty damn incredible.
Mm.
So all these gazillion tiny throbs of emotion create one big throb of emotion, the universe. Okay.
Yeah. So here I just wanted to, okay, so I wanted to extend our experience of actual occasions
Mhm.
to organs like cells, molecules, and atoms. And so that's the imaginal leap that we sort of need to make, but you've obviously made it. And then I've introduced this idea of societies because it just had to, because actual occasions just, flow into existence and they go into, into the immortal past, right? So they're just coming into being and perishing basically. So what endures is a pattern. Societies, there are societies of actual occasions, right? And that account for the enduring physical forms we encounter, like our bodies and our desk and whatever, like the physical world. And basically, if you think of it, if you think of something like an analogy would be, your liver is made up of cells, but my liver is not the same liver I had 2 years ago because all the cells really have regenerated, right? So physically, I could say, well, that's not the same liver, but in fact, it is because the form form is maintained. So actual occasions are kind of the same thing. They reproduce in a certain way, so in relationship, so that there's a continuity of certain structures in the physical world that we live in, right? But
Well, it's like one cell gets to replaced at a time. The liver's not replacing all of its cells at the same moment. So
no,
there's that continuity. Yeah.
right, right. But it's sort of the form endures, even though the cells have all changed. It's kind of like the body endures even though the actual occasions have flowed through it, making different decisions, making it a dynamic living being, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so basically, actual occasions come into, okay, so the whole universe is united. Actual occasions come into being through a process Whitehead calls concrescence, which is borrowed from biology, just means like, it unifies all the past events into a private moment of actual experience, okay? Our own private moment of experience. This is the individuation of the universe, okay? The whole past is still part of our experience, right? Yet our perspective makes it feel individual and personalized. That's why we get this, our sense of me, myself, and I. Okay.
Yep.
So, but from then, as individual occasions affect the whole, right? And then the whole comes back and affects the next individual actual occasion. So we're affected by the whole. We affect the whole, and in turn are again in the next iteration affected by the changed whole, right? So
Yeah.
does that make does, does that okay? So that
Yeah, this really ties in with this concept of deep time because it makes it personal. Like I am that. I am part of the whole deep time concept. I'm a participant. I'm a player.
yeah, yeah, and it also gives a sense of this me, myself, and I beyond the ego, right?
Right, exactly.
But I do have a sense of I, me, my like, this is my leg, this is my thumb, this is my voice. I mean
Well, we
that
can be a tiny point and we can be the whole universe simultaneously. We can
Right.
experience that.
right. We take in the whole universe. So we take in the whole past of all the occasions that have ever happened, and some are much more intimate, close into us, and some things are become negligible, but basically that's that individual and wholeness, sort of explained in Whitehead's theory of concrescence. So
And
so
it
he
fits with that beautiful experience of perceived boundaries dissolving momentarily.
oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I love that. I love that. So that was kind of Whitehead's metaphysics in a nutshell. Uh,
I love it. We're already living that. I love it. I love that. Oh, yes.
no, it's great. I love your comments there. Um, I just thought I wanted to go on and talk about relationship and
Okay.
what Whitehead means to us about how we view a relationship. So I'm going to talk about how his metaphysics allows for a radical interrelationship. Just use a nice quote by Brian Swim and Thomas Berry: "Nothing is itself without everything else," which really we've been touching on. And I want to touch on that idea again of the universe is a throb of emotion. Um, so
I love
I
that.
love that. We are centers of experience, not just specks in the universe.
right, right. And so again, I want to contrast this old way of thinking about being in the universe, right? So individual actual occasions affect the whole, and the whole affects the next individuated actual occasion. We just talked about this. We are affected by the whole and affect the whole, right? So we just talked about that. But let's talk about being a speck, okay? So in ancient times, we used to think that the Earth was the center of the universe, right? The sun went around the Earth, and then there was a Copernican revolution that kind of moved us out from the center. So we revolve around the sun. It's kind of like figuring out, what you're special, and now you've got siblings, right? So
On a cosmic scale.
on a
Yeah.
cosmic scale, yeah. So that's fine. Well, you got mom and dad. Well, they're still great stars. Well, no, they're kind of just insignificant stars in a big galaxy. So you're getting smaller and smaller. The importance of you is getting smaller and smaller in the grand scheme of things. And then you find out there's billions and billions of galaxies. I have to wave my hands in case Brian's here. There are billions and billions of galaxies. So even our galaxies, not that significant. Okay. And within a Cartesian worldview, with no intrinsic relationships, we have to make them up, and we're isolated. We have no relationship, and we feel small and insignificant, right? And our aims and our goals become very small and ego driven, because the best you can be when you're a small person is bigger than the next person.
Mm-hmm.
Fight for survival.
Right. There's a fight for survival. I may be a speck, but I'm a bigger speck than you. So sort of it leads to this very selfish um, way of being in the world, sort of feeling like a speck. So okay, but reimagine our place in the universe. Okay, well then comes the news that the universe itself is expanding, and everywhere you are, you're at the center of the universe.
Wow.
Okay, and that just blows your mind, right?
Mhm.
How does that even work, right? So, so the thing about, kind of grapple with, wow, we're an expanding universe. I'm a center, I'm a center, you're a center. How does that work? Well, Whitehead actually gives us the metaphysics to work through that. And it's a tough one to work through, I find. So yeah, so really it's just we're just talking about, this idea of radical interrelationship and a new way of understanding our place in the universe, not as a speck, but as something, that's adding to it, that's absorbing it. It's just a really different, it's just a really different perspective. And we have really different goals and aims. For example, as you said, the aim for harmony, the aim for beauty, right? It's not the aim for having a house that's bigger than the next person. So anyway.
Diminishing another because then that makes me bigger and all that kind of silliness. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if you're a speck, it doesn't feel good. You got to find something to make yourself feel good. And so our goals, right? And our aims become very, very small.
Okay.
Right. So the other part I want to talk about relationship is that how does this all work? Well, we're a feeling-based universe, right? So this is sentio ego sum. I feel, therefore I am, versus Descartes.
Thinking.
Yeah, I think, therefore I am, right? So this is another switch that Whitehead makes. And so and they come across as different from different ways. So Descartes focus on what separates us from the rest of nature, that is high level cognitive processes, whereas Whitehead focuses on what makes us similar. And this is we live at the level of feeling, right? And so that's what I wanted to.
Wow.
Yeah. So my perception, in my experience, I see things, I feel things, I touch things. This perception using the five senses, he titles perception in the mode of presentational immediacy. Okay. It is my experience, right? This is what I see, this is what I feel. But he says that there's a deeper level of causality and feeling that every entity in the universe has. And so subjective experience is feeling the experience of others, right? Feeling into the subjective experience of other actual occasions. And this is where stuff actually happens. Okay, so see if I can make that clearer. Okay. So what we're talking about, these very basic emotions, primitive feelings, right? So if we strip away the need for sense organs and complex cognitive process, we can discover a very primitive way of being. And I'm just wondering if that's not what you tap into a little bit with your work. Okay.
Well, indeed. And, Whitehead had me at mysticism is direct insight into the depths unspoken but felt. So yeah, direct experience. That's exactly where we're at.
Right. So he's asking us to see our own experience as a broader generalization of what's going on in the universe. And he's talking about this primitive feeling. So let's get some examples.
So what do you mean he asks us to see our own experience to a broader generalization? Is that to see it on the cosmic stage?
To see it as more cosmic. So in order to do that, we have to really eliminate what makes us human, right? So our five senses,
Step out of our own limited boundaries. Yeah.
Out of our limited boundaries. Yeah. So let me just sorry, just give me a second.
And I would also think, Pia, that requires us to put on a new set of lenses as well to expand our state of perception.
Yeah, I think it's understanding that we live, what we think is real is very much a high level of that basic primitive emotion or primitive feeling. Okay. So for example, I say, okay, so when we say causal efficacy, right? these primitive feelings are what cause things to happen, right? Okay, that's why he says it's causal. So, and he says that our sensory organs, right, are simply evolved to receive and amplify specific types of primitive feeling. Okay, but specific types of energy, but they evolve from a more primitive mode of transmission. Okay, so we've actually evolved. Our sense organs have evolved to specialize in amplifying some of these primitive feelings, and they become our various sense organs.
Yeah.
I would
Yeah.
also say that the universe has equipped us to perceive beyond what our normal everyday existence affords us. So we are also equipped with sensory apparatus to perceive into that numinous state, the eternal now, as Felicitas Goodman would call it. We can perceive beyond just our boundaries here in this physical universe.
What did you call the now, the intra
I
now?
called it the eternal now, and I think that is very much what you were describing earlier.
Yeah.
Just perceiving beyond the bounds. Yeah.
Okay, so I just have a couple of examples, and I know you've got much better examples than this, but just some that we can just tap into. So let's say you walk into a dinner party, right? You the host and hostess are there. You've got your hostess gift, and everybody's smiling and welcoming you in, but you can feel the tension in the room. Right? Okay. And probably you think, wow, I wonder if those guys have been arguing, but they've got, smiles on their face, everybody's cheerful, but you've picked up on something. So that's maybe, that idea of gut feel is more the primitive level of feeling, right? Now, people might say, oh, you're just picking up on their body language, but their body language is coming from a basic primitive feeling,
Okay, the two are interrelated. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I would say I'm picking it up directly, but somebody says, oh, no, you couldn't possibly be doing that. I go, well, they're transmitting it because, they're coming up with this body language because they are feeling in a deep primitive, there's a deep primitive feeling that's causing that and just amplifying. What I'm seeing in body language is an amplification and expression of that primitive feeling. So
Absolutely.
And it's a survival strategy that we're equipped with those receptor sites to pick up on all of that. Right?
yeah, sure.
Yeah.
When somebody's looking at you. And I just want to give another example. Feeling like the idea with Whitehead is that our feelings are not stuck inside the body. They are transmitted out. Okay.
Yeah.
And
Radiate.
they condition subsequent reality, not just for myself, but for everything around me, right? To sometimes a negligible effect, but sometimes great effect. So for example, this is one example somebody gave me. Parents show their care and concern when they're very careful to make meaningful eye contact with and hold and rock their baby, in a caring fashion, to show that they care and love this infant, right? So generally, they think that this action is necessary to convey love. Okay, seems reasonable, but okay. But with Whitehead, we can think that the things that they are doing, okay, those actions are merely amplifying what the baby already feels.
There you go. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So for example, if they resent having this child, but are doing all the right gestures, then there's a real unharmonious aspect that would be at a very deep level palpable as emotional dissonance resulting in insecure emotional development of that child, right? So the idea that primitive feeling is there, and what we're doing is just amplifying it, right? So I think that's a good example of when we're talking about primitive feeling versus we think we're doing something, but we're really resonating with something that's coming in at a deep feeling level. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah. So let's Yeah, so those are the two aspects of relationship I just wanted to talk about. One is, again, one is just it being a feeling universe, and the different the shift in consciousness, the shift in consciousness to embrace the difference between being a spec and non-relational, and feeling this incredible surge of positivity when you consider yourself as, wow, no, as the universe, as an expression of the universe,
I
like
like this aim to
really
beauty, and I've always felt that we are designed to behold beauty, witnessing the harmony of the universe. Like beauty's built into us, this receptor site, so that the universe is what it is, and our perception of it is beautiful. It leads us, right? It guides us. Beauty guides us. That's why we find it beautiful.
yeah, yeah,
It's sort of
Emotional response to the order of the universe, the harmony of the universe, the dynamics in their correct divine right flow. So,
maybe that ties into the Navajo prayer, beauty before me, beauty behind me, beauty to the left, to the right, to the above, to the below. I live in beauty. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Whitehead says beauty.
universe that makes sense.
I love it. I love that. Yeah. Whitehead says beauty is the ultimate aim because it requires no justification.
Mm.
It is its own justification. It's
Yeah.
it's kind of the highest aim. I mean,
Mm.
you see something beautiful and you don't have to say, well, you know, I mean, there's just nothing higher. And beauty for him is the harmony of harmonies, right?
Yeah.
But
I was
so
captivated by the fact that we are designed to appreciate the golden mean, or the ratio, and that is how life unfolds itself. You see it in life unfolding, you see it reflected in indigenous art, in music. We're just tuned to that. And I thought, well, right there, that is the universe appreciating that through us. We're
mhm,
designed to intrinsically recognize that and appreciate that and call that correct, call that right. It just feels right. Even
yeah,
back to your emotions, it feels right. It resonates correctly. So I think that's just such a beautifully designed universe to reflect itself into. It has to have mechanics to aim towards beauty, right? Life will unfold in these divine proportions. So many of the plants, the animals, our hands, our fingers, all of that. So I just think it's so self-referential right there. So just
yeah,
Maybe.
absolutely. The aesthetic of beauty. And there's just so many ways that harmony and beauty are represented. I mean, certainly, aesthetically in nature, but there's also beauty in our relationships when they're harmonious,
yeah.
right? Um, but still interesting. There's still novelty, right? There's still novelty. It's not stale beauty. It's like,
It's
it's
not
beauty.
static beauty.
Yeah, it's beauty, so, but Whitehead talks about, the beauty of the integration of a mathematical system is
Right.
quite, is quite beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
Um,
beauty of mathematics, or the mathematics of beauty. It's kind of like he's bringing that to the table. Yeah.
he talks about the readjustment of the biochemical balance when you quench your thirst. You know, I mean,
Right.
you don't think about that as beauty, but it's actually reestablishing a harmony. And actually, when you quench your thirst, that is a very pleasant thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
So he also talks about the way an organism creates a new composition as a result of slight alterations of the genes,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Um, and the way an artist alters an entire painting to adjust to changes of color or shape in a small section, or creates the artwork itself from paint and canvas. So, there are just so many ways,
Flow happening, right? The
so many
flow.
ways that beauty and harmony, express themselves. And again, it's like going back to the emotions. When things are harmonious, you can feel it. There's a dissonance. Dissonance is not pleasant, right? You wanna fix it. But the other thing, static beauty, boredom is not interesting either. So you're always introducing novelty to make more and more complexity of beauty, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Whitehead supports that. So, like I said, a spec has lowly aims and ambitions. And Whitehead appeals to a broader outlook as to our place in the universe. We're not just hell-bent on survival, but we're open to broader aims of novelty, creativity, harmony, and beauty. And these are larger goals translated into our immediate personal aims that align with these. So our
right relationship with it all.
Yeah. So we have our own way of expressing, expressing this, almost these archetypal, aims in our lives. And so I think that's
wow.
that's pretty good. Harmony builds upon on harmony. But I was at the airport, I go, wow, look at all the things that had to go right. Look at all the things that had to go right in order for this to go wrong. I was missing a point.
Look at all the things that had to go right in the creation of this universe for us to exist at all.
Right.
For us to be having this conversation.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'll just leave you with one last line from Adventure of Ideas, which I really love. The trust in the self-justification of beauty introduces faith where reason fails to reveal the details.
Ooh, that's a very complex sentence, isn't it? Where reason fails to reveal the details.
Do the sentence one more time. One more time. Tell the full sentence again.
Sure. Yeah, it is a mouthful. I think for me, it's just saying, beauty when you see it and you don't, or when you feel it, right? You don't have to, you can take it apart afterwards. Oh, I see the artist did this, or I see the plant is growing like this, or whatever. You can take it all apart, but the initial impulse is that beauty is just there, and it introduces a faith that beauty is something significant and important, and we don't really have to take it apart. We just know it when we see it. So
well, it is a direct experience to behold it, isn't it? Whereas reason and intellect can't take us quite there. I mean,
I love it. Yeah. I'll just read it one more time.
Completely land on it.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's a direct experience. But the fact that we have direct experience of beauty, of something harmonious, and we know it and we sense it and we feel into it, right? It gives faith. It's just not some random universe, right?
Right.
That's what we call the ecstatic experiences, to behold the universe and feel that flow and that exchange and that direct communication.
That energy, yes.
That's true communion. I guess that you could call that a faith, that experience. But you're quoting Whitehead from his book, Adventure of Ideas. Where would you recommend we start of his many books? Where's the starting point for the?
You're not the first person to ask me that question, and I appreciate that that based on what I've said, you're interested in Whitehead.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That makes me very happy. I'm trying
to get all the synapses here on the New Cosmic Story. So this will help.
So I wouldn't recommend any of. I mean, I think Adventure of Ideas is a great book. Because he talks about civilization. I would read Adventure of Ideas. But he's really not really approachable. Adventure Ideas is a lovely book.
I think he's a translator, Pia. Maybe you'll write the book, the introduction to. I guess others have done this, but
the translation, like the Bhagavad Gita, you have to bring the knowledge forward.
Sit down into a primer.
This has been important to me to be able to do this, and I have to say it took a lot of effort to to hopefully make it, and you guys are so receptive and so open to this, and really into that the type of consciousness that understands this. So very very gratifying to dialogue through with you guys, have the conversation through as I was presenting my material, because Whitehead is hard to sort of explain very, very simply. And which is why I get up at 2:00 in the morning, kind of go, I don't know, is that going to make sense?
It makes perfect sense. And let's get our audience reaction as well.
I want to, and coming back to your personal experience, I just wanted to say, you chose this. This is your PhD. This is the research. You said, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to understand. This is how I spend the next many years of my life figuring out and trying to put together the puzzle. I mean, that's an amazing journey you chose.
Sitting across the dinner table with you at that event
Yeah.
and hearing you speak about Whitehead, just the glow in your eyes, the infusion of
Yeah.
beauty on your face told me so much
Yeah.
about what this did to you when you imbibed this and grokked with this.
We were at the Woodby Institute sitting at the picnic table together, and these are the conversations we were having.
Yeah.
Fabulous.
So like, you must share. Pia, come.
Yeah. Uh,
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And yeah, I again, it's sort of like I just wanted to emphasize like how we're stuck in an old way and how, moving to this new way is just so much more gracious and beautiful. And but it's important to see how we're stuck and to show that there is a metaphysics that will take us the extra mile, to get us into, to flip us into a new way of being in the world
I
culturally.
consider this a survival strategy. I consider this that the universe is saying, hey, if this is who I am, as the universe would say, then this is jump on board. Jump on board. Take the rocket ship. Come on, let's go.
Yeah.
Create
Yeah.
a world around these principles.
Yeah.
Live this collectively. I think
Well,
it's a strategy for
let's add some community to the conversation. I'm going to
Yes,
ask
thank
Monica
you.
to go first and share her insight questions and whatever. Hi, Monica.
Oh, hello, and Pia, it's so awesome to listen to you elucidate that all so beautifully, and what you have done with Whitehead is by focusing on his theory, metaphysics of emotions, has made Whitehead accessible to our hearts, like in ways that in other disciplines, all the other disciplines, Whitehead applied, this is an entirely new metaphysics that applies everywhere, not just to our emotions, but this is perhaps the one place that people don't need, a degree in one of the sciences or a degree in philosophy or a degree in anywhere to really understand, to grok it as you've done it. And you need to keep going with this,
Yes.
and to continue to, to tell this new way of feeling ourselves present. Paul, when you said, well, wow, in some sense, we're in a society with, the big, it goes all the way back. I mean, we are concressing. That's, we are bringing this moment forth right here with all of it. And that is how we're present. And I just want to say one thing, and maybe I'm thinking of Tony Hall. When I first encountered Whitehead, what got me, because I have taken courses in special relativity, Einstein. Okay, so there are some clear differences between Whitehead and Einstein. And Whitehead's a mathematician before he was a philosopher and a logician, and he just struggled so much with the fallacy of misplaced concreteness, where you look at the static world and you think that's what it is, and of course that's what Einstein believed in. And so he tried to come up with an alternative theory of special relativity where simultaneity was not relative as it is. Okay, so like it doesn't depend on your reference. It doesn't depend on how fast you're moving or any of these things. And it doesn't depend on a static world. And so Einstein's theory became the theory of a static universe. And so so Whitehead's mathematics simply added terms to the mathematical equations that went to zero. And so we're no longer relevant in a static world. And it worked. It made the same predictions that Einstein is so successful about relativity. And then he pursued it further with general relativity. But what's so amazing about this is that the big difference that I perceive between Whitehead, even though he doesn't really talk about time, but because he has a series of moments and because it's process, the big difference is that time is real. And so we are developing. And so we just need to accept that we are a developing universe. And of course, we didn't even know this until like recently. So the
Wow.
developing universe is what's new for math, for science, for, not for math really, because math is like so abstract. It is it's just equations. It doesn't, apply. It has no application. It just assumes it's true for a completely abstract world, general relations, Anyway, so Whitehead is just huge in all of these fields, and like in
Cracks it open.
yeah, cracks it open for everything. In fact, they're using his thinking for developing self-driving cars and new ways of having to
Really?
use like phase transitions, and of course chaos theory and all that stuff comes into play nicely with Whitehead, where it doesn't with classical or Einsteinian.
Monica was part of these picnic table discussions at this event, and so you can imagine that we all had.
But I love what you presented today, Pia. Good job.
No, thank you. It's so nice to see you as well. Actually, I'd love to sit down with you sometime and get your discuss with you the science, the Einstein Whitehead comparison connection. I think that'd be really invaluable for me. So hope to do that one day.
It's
So
so insightful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And we want to invite ourselves to that discussion.
Yeah.
We want to listen in on that one.
Well, yes, no, well, we can have it here. We can have it wherever.
Fabulous.
Have it. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Monica. And I know you mentioned Tony. Tony put in the chat room in the very beginning, he says, as a high school freshman, my understanding and ability to do math was fundamentally changed by reading Whitehead's book, An Introduction to Mathematics. Life-changing. Yeah. And we'll have
Okay, so Tony, you have to explain that a little further, but I want to quote Dave Flagel, who wrote in the chat, Renee put Descartes before the horse. Oh, good one.
Isabel has her hand up, and Tony, you can jump in afterwards. Isabel, there you are.
Hi. Thank you so much, Pia. That was amazing. I really appreciated the breakdown that you did. And what really struck me in the beginning of your talk was the brief mention of changing it to thou, and how deep that can be. Oh my goodness, I'm almost getting teary, because not only are you taking that moment to recognize the life in front of you, what it does is it reaffirms the life within you. It's not just it reaffirms the sentience within you when you recognize the sentience within others. So thank you so much. And on the mathematical side, I'm going to be posting this video of you, Pia, or sharing it with a friend of mine who has a misshapen brain, was born with a misshapen brain. He's absolutely brilliant, but he's funny, but he sees everything in numbers. So when he looks at a person, he sees a series of numbers. So, and they all make sense. And so I just wanted to share that there's actually a human being out there that sees the beauty in the numbers in a very real way. Yeah. So thank you again.
An interesting form of synesthesia. Yeah. Could he talk to us? Could you bring him on and introduce him and just let us chat with him?
Absolutely. Sure. Right now he's canvassing to help people get out there to the vote. So he hasn't been attending on Sundays, but I have been suggesting that he do so. So I will keep doing that. He'd be a lovely speaker and participant. Yeah.
Thank you, Isabel. Yeah. You're welcome. Beautiful.
Yeah.
All right. Well, raise hands if you have comments and questions, so you can join in and have an opportunity to talk to Pia.
I just wanted to say I so appreciate that comment on I and thou, because it just came to me and I went, that's going to express what I'm trying to get at, and the fact that you got it just makes my heart glad. So yeah, just appreciate you sharing that. And yeah, that's
Ah,
one.
fabulous. Tony, did you want to? I don't see if his.
Or Dave, put Dave on. He had more to say.
Oh yeah.
Oh, just
Oh,
the
hey.
Rene, Rainy Descartes. No, Rene put the Descartes before divorce
Mhm.
because it's actually the other way around. I am, and therefore I think.
Mhm.
Oh, good one.
Does that
Yes.
make you feel better now?
Yeah.
It does me.
Yeah.
So,
Gosh. Well, we were asking who'd heard of Whitehead, and you pulled up a book in which he's quoted in famous quotes.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's a big a book I picked up for $1.
Uh,
Love to use bookstores.
what's the title? What's the title? We can't quite see it.
Well, let's see.
Oh, the Great
Great
Thoughts.
thought.
Oh,
Okay.
the Great Thoughts. Yeah, it's
And there
and
he is.
has a lot of people in it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And Whitehead has about almost a whole page.
That's a rating.
Really,
Yeah.
really
Thank you, Dave.
quite
Yeah.
comprehensive.
You
Uh,
could flip to that page and read us some more of his quotes. What did they think was so important about Whitehead if you in that book? I mean, of the many things he said and the volumes he wrote, well, what is one page? What's merited to get on that one page is what I'm asking.
Well,
So,
I'll let somebody else talk and come back to it. I'll take a look. I
yeah,
just
take a look. All
find,
right.
find,
Thank you, Dave.
all right, I'll be back.
Yep.
thank you.
You're here. All right. Well, uh, in the meantime, we can continue with any other questions. Laura's the one. I live with the questionnaire.
Here's my
Laura's
question.
life is about questions. Yeah.
Here's my question. What was the moment of revelation that cracked Alfred North Whitehead open? Was it a mystical experience? Was it, what was, how did he describe how he got to where he landed to elucidate all this?
You know what, I think, because I sent you that quote about what, philosophy being, sorry, direct experience.
Yeah.
Sorry. And I go, wow, he's had some experience, some altered altered experiences. I mean, he must have, because he refers to them. And also, he was Whitehead was someone who was trying to give a metaphysical basis, underpinning for the work of William James, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, great admirer of William James, and he
He wrote all about altered states through history. Yeah.
right. So there's no doubt in my mind that, altered states were of interest to him. I mean, my personal thing, I think, is that when he wrote this great book about logic with Bertrand Russell, he got to the end and he realized the limits of logic. And because, and I'm just, maybe he's written about it, but I'm just hypothesizing. He goes, there's a moment when you do all this logical, all these equations, whatever, and if there's a moment you just go, uh-huh,
Mm-hmm.
and you can't explain it, right? You get to that, and so I think, for me, I think that he got to that moment. He goes, well, what's that moment of, uh-huh, that's right, uh-huh.
Well, I
So
would say mysticism is when you encounter the mysteries.
that to him was a mystery. That to
Inevitable
him was a mystery.
thing,
It's gone through all this logic, only to,
unexplained. And
only
logic cannot take you into it.
no, but it got him to the doorway where he goes, I can't explain this anymore, other than I'm kind of going, wow,
Mhm.
that's beautiful, or or I have, it gives me satisfaction. It's just a felt sense when you get that equation right. And
Mm-hmm.
I think he couldn't explain that. And I think that's where the limits of
Mhm.
logic hit him. That's my idea. Because I actually remember being in math class in the 10th grade. I love math. And I was enjoying it that year. And I'd sit in the back and I'd do my homework. And I just enjoyed doing it. I think we're doing calculus or something. And so I went, oh, isn't that an interesting I remember thinking to myself, isn't that an interesting experience where you know you got it?
Yeah.
So, and I remember the moment thinking about that moment of, oh, isn't that interesting? How about that moment you got it? So so the fact that I can remember that moment years ago, kind of, well, how does that work?
Yeah.
That sense of awe and wonder.
Yeah, like that's so satisfying, but
A
why?
glimpse into how the universe works. I found a lot of surety in mathematics. I like the fact that you could go at an equation this way and arrive at the same answer or this way. It felt
Satisfying.
solid to me,
Yeah,
right? It felt
satisfying.
like the universe had some structure to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
So
love that. Yeah, I love that.
Mathematics through the doorway of mysticism, or the other way around. Mysticism through the doorway of mathematics. Brian Tucker, come on
Oh,
in.
Hey, oh, this is terrific. Yeah, I'm so enjoying the conversation today. You're opening for me a deeper appreciation for Whitehead. You bring a lot of emotional clarity into this discussion about the story of the universe. And I've been so longing to hear someone say the universe is a throb of emotion. And you said it, and you brought me right there, because I've oftentimes wondered, that word passion, to feel with. Does the universe really feel with us? And can we feel the universe? So I wonder if you find in your work that there's an underrepresentation of this point of view, although your mentors are certainly there, Monica and Brian Swim and others. But in the realm of science, and the story of the universe is really being given to us popularly, the feeling tones of the universe are oftentimes left out. And while the philosophy can be kind of dry at first to hear, you're kind of opening a portal, and I'm sure you're aligned with others, that you feel you're not the lone voice here. But I find that this point of view is underrepresented in the story of the universe. And I long for, this is why I like the work of embodied spiritual practice like Kuyamunge does with ecstatic ritual postures. It allows us to feel our way, embody the story of the universe. We want it to be from within as well as from without. So I just wondered if you could comment a little bit about that.
Well, I think does the universe suffer along with us? Is that or experience or feel along with us? Yeah, I think Whitehead gives us an idea, gives us his God. His God has two phases. One is has two facets. One is the primordial nature of God, and the other one is the consequential nature of God. So the primordial nature of God orders things. He says what order is possible. He's in order to have order, right, or structure, you have to eliminate things. Like everything can't be, allowed to be in the structure, otherwise the structure doesn't have any meaning, right? So meaning means taking things out so that you have a structure. So that's the primordial nature of God. Structures the universe, what is possible.
God the curator.
Sorry?
God the curator.
Right. He's a curator, right? So, but then there's the consequential nature of God. And basically that's the throb of emotion. That God is the whole. God is that throb of emotion. And yeah, he feels along with us. So as the universe, as we individuate and participate into the whole, God feels, God feels along with us. He's not right out there. He's within the whole. I guess that's what came up for me. When you were first asking the question, and the other thing that you mentioned was, is this type of thing underrated? Unfortunately, it's not. You see these books on, deep history, and it's just facts. It doesn't really have that much meaning. It's just very dry, and sadly.
That's why we need a woman writing this next translation for him, right? Because emotions are our realm.
Yeah. Yeah, I enjoyed doing this thing on emotions because it was a way in. It was a way to explain emotions as something bigger, more cosmic in the universe. But also it's also a way in because we know what emotions are, right? So it was just a way in to describe Whitehead's, more difficult passages, this theory of concrescence, for example. Because everything, what Whitehead gives us is there's an objective reality out there, like, well, the objective, the way we objectify things, but there's also everything has a subjective form. Okay. So, for example, if I'm walking down the street and I see a woman down the street and I see that's my third grade teacher, not only will I objectify it as like, oh, that's Miss Jameson, right? I will also have a subjective response to that, right? So everything has everything. What we're missing is every object, everything that we objectify in our lives, we're having a subjective response to it, an emotional response to it. It's not what it is, it's how we feel about it. And so that's often missing, but it's how we feel about it is actually what's driving, what we're going to do next. I'm going to go talk to that. I'm going to go talk to Miss Jameson. I'm going to go hug Miss Jameson. Or if my subjective form about seeing, this woman here identified as Miss Jameson was like, oh, that, whatever. I'm going to maybe cross the street and go the other way. So it's causal, right? Our subjective experience is causal. It's not like me seeing her and thinking, oh, I should go over to see her because I like her. It's like I'm propelled to go over there to even think about talking to her because I'm having my subjective form of my relationship to her is very positive.
Maybe we need to learn more about human whispering, right? I have talked with many people the horse whisperer, Monty Roberts, talked with him. I talked with a gentleman who had a draft horse, and he was explaining how the draft horse relates to the signals that he gives it in terms of it likes the harness on its back, it likes this movement. Like, I'm speaking its language is what he's in effect saying. Both these horse whisperers were saying. And I had this long discussion about how we have a language, how we relate to one another, what are the signals that we give and receive, and this exchange. We are whispering with our dogs and our pets constantly. We are learning to speak their language of signals and emotions and expectations and habits and all of this. And I'm sure they're reading our thoughts as well. But I mean, why don't we understand that amongst ourselves as well? That we're also having this very complete language with multiple layers that we're signaling. And how about the universe has got us in that whispering dialogue as well?
Yeah.
We in our community expect and entertain and engage in the universe in this whispering effect more so than our society acknowledges. I guess that's how I would define also what you're asking, that we are in dialogue with this universe. It is flowing through us. We are reading its signals. And we've talked at length about this amongst ourselves, but we are in the same dynamic, much more expanded than our society's signals. And so when we talk about this, we're relegated to other. Oh, that's other. That's your imaginal realm. I'm like, no, it's my lived experience. And I think the universe has set it up that way.
Yeah.
That is our experience over and over and over again. The universe has given us the receptor sites. We are transmitters, receivers. We are gifted with this inner visionary realm as well to dialogue, to experience, to go exploring. There's much more to us than we acknowledge. This is how the universe has created. If you say the universe has created humans, evolved humans to be reflecting the universe and all of its majesty, well, this is how one of the ways in which it's doing this. As you say, Brian, this lived experience, this direct experience, this greater bandwidth.
Thank you, Pia. Thank you.
I appreciate your example, Pia, and I would say we humans need to acknowledge we are doing that constantly, not just with ourselves, with everything.
No, thanks, Brian.
Jamesons are everywhere.
Brian kind of brings up an important point. I mean, that idea that we are, that maybe through the eyes of Whitehead, we can look at the field of of mathematics, which brought us to the field of emotions. And Brian's talking about embodied experience, and that this is the interconnecting point. This is the thing that maybe draws this world together from the field of the most extreme field of scientific research to that of direct experience, and those two worlds coming together. I mean, that's sort of always been a specific theme. A major theme of this institute is how can we still acknowledge all that's happening in the world of science? We don't want to ever close our eyes. And at the same time, we want to also know and have equal access to direct experience and how those two worlds can come together, not collide, but integrate.
Yeah,
Right.
well, that's why it's so exciting to see, oh, here is a respected scholar
Right.
who's is thoroughly acknowledged and
Exactly.
validating all of this.
Right.
And
You
we're
want
like,
you
oh,
want you want
that's
you
a
want a
platform for
you
us to
want a
exist.
logician mathematician who can put together a coherent system and complete system of metaphysics, you
Right.
know, to say he gets it.
Yeah.
And here it is, he's explained it to us, right?
Yeah.
So
Thank
yeah.
you.
Yeah,
And he
yeah.
showed up at Harvard. So,
Well,
come
that-
on, academia has fully accepted this.
But he was a
Right.
full academic in England, and he has lots of history prior to yeah, exactly. Monica is revisiting us, Isabella, and I know Tony also in the chat room mentioned that he'd like to join back in too. So let's go
Put
through.
everybody on. Come on, let's have a panel discussion.
Okay. Yeah,
I'll set the
Monica.
control switches.
Yeah. Okay, Laura wants to do a panel, so I'm going to put Isabella and I'm going to put Tony
Let
on as
Monica
well.
speak first. She had her hand up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, to see if I can connect this up. Laura, you're talking about how we're in the universe and we're just like we are in the universe. And then Paul, you're talking about what I want to say is like, and then we ask, I feel like just oh God, I want to say this. Okay. And then you ask the question, what pulled on Whitehead so he could see all this? And one of the things that I identified in his work that really drew him forward. Remember, he's a logician,
Yeah.
and in science, the scientific method, which is really just us, this struggle for the truth. We seek what is right. We seek what is true. We want to understand what it is we're about, and that's the scientific method. But the scientific method had this relativity had this measurement problem that you have to know exactly where everything is before you can apply the laws and then determine where everything is going to be later.
That's an impossibility to know where everything is.
It was not logical. And so he's throughout Process and Reality, which is his big book, the one that is
the backbreaker.
Yeah, the one that's the backbreaker. Throughout that, he is trying to come to terms with the measurement problem. And it's because he works so long and hard. So it's because he's seeking the truth. And it's because we are the universe reflecting back on itself all the way and coming up that he has to come up with everything being somehow present in us.
Right.
Everything that has ever happened is here and now. Otherwise, we have this measurement problem. So time becomes real. The process becomes real. I just had to say that. And so I it may have been psychedelic experiences or whatever, but I feel like it was the aim of the universe, in a deep sense. The aim he identifies as the aim to beauty,
Right.
in a deep sense that was actually manifesting itself in him,
Yeah.
See, I don't think we have to use psychedelics to explain those moments of breakthrough and wonder and connection.
Mm.
Well,
Right? I think
sometimes
it's just
people
built
do.
in within us, and there's many avenues of
Right.
growth.
But
Understand. So I don't. Yeah.
yeah.
So, who's next? Is
Yeah, go ahead, Isabella.
No, go ahead.
No, you're next, and then I'll go to Tony.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, isn't that just like science finally figured out that the scientists had an effect on what they were studying under the microscope, that everything was relational, that there was really, truly no objectivity. And it leads to, on a human level, being a therapist that I am, just paying attention to the person in front of me, that seeing them that giving them that attention just creates it's reactive. They start there's a well, you called it a reflection, but we start moving together in the same wave. Like if I'm calm, they're excited, we meet together. And I find that looking at flowers or plants, it's like they brighten up. There is that communication that you were talking about. And I love that science has finally figured that out. You know, it's like, oh my God, we are not separate. We cannot objectively, you know,
You don't live in isolation.
study the matter around us without it responding in some way.
Right.
You know,
Beautiful.
that's
Yeah. I mean, that's
Now
the
we get
world
to
that,
the scientist here, Tony.
yeah. And Tony,
Who's
since you haven't, Pia, you haven't met Tony, but Tony is an astrophysicist and he's been an advisor to the Institute for many years and astronomer. And anyway, Tony, plus a mathematician.
Okay. Pia, I'm loving what I'm hearing and all the comments here. They're great. Just a couple of things I would say. Whitehead means a lot to me. And I put in the comments that I was regarded to be in the fifth quintile of my class in mathematical ability as I went into my freshman year. I read Whitehead's book and a couple of others as part of a math club my school had. All of a sudden, it made sense. When I graduated, I had the top math college boards in my school, and 40% of my class went to Ivy League or MIT or schools like that. So this gave me a different realization. It all of a sudden made sense. So that's a personal story. In terms of scientific discovery, in my world, this is very intuitive. That experiments are done and there's a passion to do them because somebody thinks they're going to be able to answer a question, to bound a problem, but they already feel they know the answer but they want to find out if it's true or not. And also for communicating, to be sure that my truth is your truth, it is good to then relegate it into objectiveness. In my world also, and I've had conversations with a number of other people, including a Nobelist who spent a week at my house earlier this year. How do you get the answers? You consider a problem, you study it in your mind, you put attention on it. It's not that you're doing 10,000 experiments and you get an answer. That very rarely happens in science. You kind of bound the problem. You look at what you need to look at. You have an inspiration, and then you find all of a sudden, like, aha, it fits. And then you go and you make an observation or observations, and you show that it fits. So I don't really see a huge distinction in some ways. It's not that we have cold objective science and warm personal subjective experiences. There is a place where both happen and they both make things happen.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
A way to make things happen. I would say ritual is also a formalized way of putting attention on something and stirring
Absolutely.
it
Yes.
to let something unfold.
Yeah.
That's a time-honored way. I would consider our early ancestors scientists as well. They were exploring their universe and finding ways and means of navigating it.
And I live in New Mexico, and there was a group of people, Hurondos, who I'm probably not pronouncing it right, but the people that learn plant medicine. And there are a lot of plants out here that could kill you, but somehow they didn't kill people. They knew, and there was some communication between the plant and the curer to know what was needed. And it's remarkable enough that modern medicine looks at their solutions and thinks, how can we patent this?
Yeah.
Yeah, there are bioprospectors that go to these areas and learn from shamans.
So that's not only in New Mexico, but the Amazon and other places where ritual medicine has thrived.
Yeah. Thank you, Tony.
Thank
Pia,
you very much.
give you a chance to speak.
No, I'm just writing down all these great examples I'm getting here. Yes, and that's such a great example of intersubjective experience is determining whether, these experts that are determining whether or not a plant is poisonous or good or whatever, the quality of a plant. I think
Those
it's
same
just
people will tell you that you also need to talk to the spirit of the plant to gain the full efficacy of the medicine. So,
right. I think it's just a nice example of a cross what was it, species um you know um communication again
Communication.
that is at a very primitive, very direct level, but with direct experience. And that's just another great example, as is the horse whisperer, the dog whisperer, and things like that is another
Mhm.
great example. There's there we're just looking for that primal level of feeling, as a feeling universe, and to feel into it. Yeah, so
Can I mention an experience I just had moments before this program?
Sure.
oh, yes, please.
I reached for my iPhone. A friend of mine had just uh, gone to Peru for 2 weeks for ayahuasca experience. As I picked up my iPhone, I got a text from her, exactly to the second. I mean, this sounds kind of trivial, but there's so many things that happen on the plane of coincidence that we often dismiss.
Right. Yeah.
But there's something else going on. I've told the story in the past of April 15th, 1977, hearing a concert and buying the CD, etc. And then I discovered, this is in Philadelphia, having never been west, and I discovered that the artist had composed this uh, less than a half mile from my house in New Mexico, and the hill she was singing about is where my house is.
Yeah.
Little things like this happen, which there's a rhythm, there's something going on that it's pretty hard to relate to on an objective plane. At least people look at me funny, but not everybody. Even I even talked about this with my Nobelist visitor earlier this year, and he was interested. And he said, "Yes, there's something going on."
Yeah.
So thank you very much for opening these doors.
Ah, beautiful. Thank you, Tony, Isabel, Monica. Any final comments before I switch back to just
We have to give the last word to Pia as well.
last word to Pia? All right, we'll do that.
Thank you
Well,
all.
it just, when you first proposed this topic, first of all, I have to express my own ignorance of not really knowing anything about Whitehead. And so that was like, what now? Who's this? It's sort of like back in the 1990s when we first did a conversation about Tesla. Tesla was this obscure guy over in the corner who made all these incredible discoveries. But
I got Nikola Tesla. Let's be
yeah,
clear.
Nikola Tesla, right? Not the car. And yeah, back in the day, and everybody thought Edison did this, and Westinghouse, and all these people discovered all these things. But there was this guy in the background that had all this incredible ability of figuring things out, but he didn't have that commercial brain. And so it's like, this guy is here. He is so obscure. Now he's not obscure. They named a car after him. He's out there. People know about Nikola Tesla.
Okay, well, then you bring up Tesla. I have to tell you my little synchronistic moment
Okay,
here.
go ahead.
So my sister wants to go to the farmer's market and walk her dog down to go to the Grange where she's got a lot of friends and just say hello. So I go with her. And then she's chatting away. And so I walk into the next booth over, and there's the local Rotary that has got a card out about, the future of electric cars. They've got a contest with take a ride in a Tesla car. I've ridden in other people's Tesla cars, no big deal. But you have a And so I'm talking to the gentleman, and the talk is by Ebersol, who co-founded Tesla long before Elon came along. He's one of the co-founders of Tesla, got outed, but he's there to give a talk that we get to go to next week about the history of not so much Tesla, but about how to solve our energy crisis. And here I am on a tiny island, Friday Harbor right now. And so this island is facing, there's a cable that goes underground, and that's at capacity. And, you know, what are
Under
we going
ocean.
to do for the future? Rates are going up. And I chatted with the gentleman and I'm like, you know, we wouldn't have this problem if we had designed houses back in the 70s with passive solar. We wouldn't have this problem. I mean, some of the first cars were yes, we need to solve this, but we have dismissed solutions that showed up on the scene decades ago. And now it's time to really take all of this seriously and find these new solutions. But I'd always been, it was just because synchronicity, I don't know, it felt like a very synchronistic moment that I struck up a conversation with this gentleman. And then it's not a great story. I'm sorry.
It's a great story.
Isn't it
Perfect.
a
No,
good story?
yeah. Well, no,
It's
the
just
interesting thing is that you,
happenstance. I wouldn't have
Yeah.
found out about the chance to
Right.
meet the founder of Tesla next week if I hadn't wandered into this, you know,
Yeah.
and struck up a conversation. I
And
didn't recognize
sometimes you find small
Saul.
communities where these people volunteer their time, whereas if they go into the general public, it's, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars to get the person to do a lecture or presentation.
Yeah,
So
he's so enamored of this community that he's donating his
Right.
lecture without
yeah,
fees.
beautiful.
That's
Yeah,
Whatever.
yeah,
Okay.
fabulous. Wow,
Anyway.
Pia, final
Do you think that
thoughts.
synchronicities are the universe patting us on the back and saying, yes, you're in the right, yes, you're being guided. You're following the clues through the breadcrumbs through the forest.
Yeah, yeah.
I'll understand them. But
Yeah.
Pia, thank you so much. Are you going to write the primer, your own book? You are lecturing, you are writing papers, you are giving talks on this, but we need the introductory volume for us, the general reader.
Well, thank you. I'm actually, yeah, we're fools rush in where wise people dare not go. No better than to go. That actually is really interesting for me, and having the opportunity to be here today has really set me on the course. You know, what I'm passionate about is actually, you know, why is Whitehead relevant? And I think places where, you know, he's not relevant in at the universities. Apparently there's only 3 graduate programs in the U.S. at universities in the whole of the U.S. that will do a Whitehead dissertation. And so yeah, so he's, you know, he's really not mainstream. But you know, but I thought, you know, who cares about academia? It's the people that are interested in
There's the rest of us.
it's the rest of who are interested in the evolution of consciousness and culture and how to
Right.
do that. And that, you know, that I'm not interested in academia. I'm interested in talking to people like you, where I can say, this is relevant to you and this will change. You know, this is a really positive, lovely way to look at tragedy, look at harmony, look at beauty, just look at the world. And yeah,
At
so
life and who we
I
are. You
I
know.
will take, so yeah, so I definitely, it means so much, and I'll definitely take that encouragement. It definitely has energized me to just sort of and affirmed that, you know, there might be a need for that.
We already have an order. Tony said he's going to buy the book, so you already have one sold.
So happy.
I will mention also another little side story, and that is that when we met with the director of the neuroscience lab at the University of Missouri in March, he talked about what happened back when people started talking about mindfulness. He said he put together programs in 2012 or 2013 or whatever it was. No one was interested. There was no money available. No one was paying attention. And then they did this one story on the cover of Time magazine about the monks and the measurement of what happens when monks do their meditation. And all of a sudden, everybody's checkbook opened up. We wanted, you know, millions of dollars was available to do research into neuroscience and the effects of mindfulness. And now we know the rest of the story because mindfulness is everywhere. But like that, this kind of stuff, somebody has to be a groundbreaking person that brings the story to the table. Then academia will follow. They'll be there. They'll say, oh God, we need a piece of the pie.
Well, I want to say that with our process, with ritual postures for ecstatic trance, we too went to the
Right.
lab at the
I
University
know.
of Missouri.
Yeah.
We wore those caps, the
I'll be
220
pictures. I'll be
electrodes.
pictures.
They tested our brain waves and they found a lot of beta plus theta.
Similar.
They said, oh, we can read it just on the charts. We don't have to do the algorithms to find any changes. It's so evident. So, I mean, we're ordinary people that have an extraordinary practice that can open up our bandwidth in some real ways. And this is all of our capacity. So that's our message, that all of us can be in a whispering relationship with the universe.
I love
Right.
that. What's a whispering relationship to the universe? I love
Yes.
that.
In dialogue.
That's
So
my
this is
beautiful
the
wife.
human capacity
Yeah.
that, and maybe it was putting the cart before the horse, as Dave said. Maybe it's the fact that
The cart.
before our civilization, our current civilization, maybe we were asked to evolve to forget that momentarily, but it's time to remember who we truly are in this
Thank
greater
you.
universe. The universe is now reaching out her arms, and reclaiming us and taking us back into her fold, it feels like, as a culture. And
Right.
and we're the willing recipients of that embrace. So
Thank you, Pia.
thank you, Pia Shaw.
All
Yeah,
right.
thank
Blessings
you.
to everybody. Good health. Take care.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Thank